But I'm going to talk to you guys now. So, about this book here that you lovely sent me, these two lovely people, we have got Griffin Barber, which is on my screen there, and Kacey Ezell.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Nailed it. Yeah.
I didn't have to practice at all.
Nope, first time.
So this book comes out, I believe, on the 8th of September.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? Yes. Yeah. Looks lovely. I'm actually going to read it because I love reading. And
we appreciate that.
Yeah. And you guys are going to tell me some about your book. So tell me about Second Chance Angel, the Last Stop Station series. Go. Whoever wants to start.
Okay. Well, Second Chance Angel is a sci-fi noir mystery. It is set on a space station that is called, most of it is set on a space station that is called the Last Stop Station, because it's the last like big space station before the abyss of space.
Is that the space between galaxies?
Not quite arms.
Yeah, the arms of the galaxy, right?
Yeah.
So think of it as like the last like bit of civilization before the great wide open frontier. It's not that there's nothing back there. It's just there's nothing.
It's a long travel.
Really worthwhile. Yeah. And it is the story of Ralston Muck, who is a veteran of a recent galactic-wide war, like I said, it's a sci-fi mystery, and with a lot of noir influence, because it turns out both Griffin and I are nuts for the noir subgenre, and we really like it. It's probably one of my favorite things that I've ever written, and yeah, we're super excited to bring it to you guys. So I don't know, Griff, what do you want to add?
Yeah, there's basically two main protagonists, one of which is Muck, who's a bouncer at a club on Last Stop Station. That's where that wonderful cover comes from, is that he has a fanboy's affection for Siren, one of the performers at the club. One of the basic conceits of this universe is that during the war, humans were equipped with artificial intelligences called angels that were actually
cool.
And they would inhabit your body with you and manage your cybernetic implants if you were a frontline soldier, and assist you in coping with the hazards of war, including the psychological ones. Cool. So the angel, which Kacey wrote that half of the book, as it were, and then I wrote the Muck half of the book. We have two first-person narratives, and early reviews have been kind of interesting to read on this, because there are other artificial intelligence that are institutional ones, so like the space station one or the law enforcement one, and they have a different, it's told in the third person, so some people kind of like, this is weird.
Yes.
But the idea being behind that they're not feeling. So they're not first person. So there's a different kind of aspect to it. And Angel runs into some really big trouble. She blames Muck originally, and she hunts him down, and they have a confrontation and figure out that they need to figure out what's really going on in the story.
Yeah.
No, I like that. So you've got point of views of the actual AI, the angels and stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that sounds quite cool. Do you know? Yeah, no, I like that actually. As I said, that's something I was trying to do actually in my own story. I'm trying to write like an AI. I like that. No, that's good. That's good. Okay. So how did you find then when you was writing, how did you split up who did what and what regarding this story then? How did you actually decide that and proceed when each other did whatever, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it kind of happened sort of naturally based on who the characters were, because Angel and her host, they're military veterans, and I've served in the military for the last 20 years, and so U.S. military, right? I should probably be specific. So I was able to draw on my own experience, with deploying and combat ops and stuff like that. Which that sounds real like fancy pantsy, but
That's all right.
yeah, I'm I'm a flyer, so that kind of combat ops. But I was able to draw on those experiences to kind of flesh out that character. And Ralston Muck, although he's a bouncer, he has a background in law enforcement, and so it was just sort of a natural fit for Griffin to kind of take on that character and use his own experiences to inform Muck's thought processes and relationships and stuff like that. So when we did, we basically kind of figured out, okay, Griffin's going to write Muck and I'll write Angel, and then we basically kind of alternated from that point on, because it just seemed a very natural way to tell the story. Because one of the things about noir that's one of the things about noir that's kind of one of the tropes or hallmarks of the subgenre is that you usually get the point of view. It's a very close point of view from your narration character. And that narrative character is not always a reliable narrator, which is sometimes the case here in Second Chance Angel. Everybody has their own angle. Everybody has their own spin on things.
That's what I like.
Yeah. And so we really tried to infuse that into our storytelling, and for that reason, it just seemed to make sense that we would say, tell something from Muck's point of view, and then we would tell either the next thing or sometimes even the same thing from Angel's point of view, and just sort of
different opinions on it. Yeah,
and that was
different perspectives. Right.
Yeah, and that was one of the big things is that one of the limitations of the first person narrative format is you're only telling it from one point of view.
Right.
So this was awesome in that we were able to we're including a bunch of other information based on what the other characters seeing through the same eyes.
Yeah. How they process it differently.
Yeah, and given that they're Kacey's obviously a woman, I'm a guy. We have this different perspective on things naturally, and then our writing styles are a bit different. So it made it much more distinct than it would have been otherwise if either of us had tried to do this on our own.
Right.
In writing it. And then when we got towards the end, there's some gaps in here that we need to fill. And there was some natural story elements that we were like, we got to figure this one out. And that's when we introduced the third person perspective for the other AIs, the institutional AIs that the characters come into contact with. And they became really cool characters as well. So
sure, yeah,
we enjoyed that aspect of it as well.
Go on, you talk.
Oh, I was going to say, so in a sense, it was the story really grew out of the voice of the characters, but the voice of the characters was really shaped by what we wanted to tell as the story. And it sounds circular because it kind of was a circular process a little bit, but. I think it came out really cool, and each of the characters really does have a very distinct voice. In fact, our agent, Griffin and I just started working on the sequel to Second Chance Angel, and when we sent our agent the first 3 chapters, the very first thing our agent said was, they're back. That's Muck and Angel's voices. They're back. So yeah, it was cool.
So when they partner up, or however it works, is it to like the AIs have a choice in this, or is it you have to like I don't know, like are they free? You know what I mean? Are they themselves, or
we kind of want to avoid giving away too many spoilers.
Sorry, I know, because I'm really interested. Sorry, I want to know if there's conflict between them and
So in their origin, the AIs are intended to enhance human soldiers' ability to fight.
Right. Okay.
She is originally. Angel is originally, her actual name is she's the same name as the AI systems.
Right.
She is originally Siren, the singer's AI, her personal AI. Siren is more of a high-speed, low-drag operator than Ralston Muck ever was in the military, and she has some baggage that goes along with that. And the angels, their choice is limited when this all kind of starts out, and it becomes very different for Angel specifically as the story progresses. And Muck is desperate to get his angel back, an angel back, because he was dishonorably discharged, and that meant that his AI was removed.
Okay. See, I could imagine there's going to be a lot of like issues, like the AI is going to be like human, do this, and like the human might not do it or want to, so there's going to be a lot of like the AI is going to be like, come on, no, go that way, and he's like, no, we've got to go. Oh, I love that. That's going to be.
So there's some significant conflict there, and that one of the things that we really wanted to do is, we really wanted to kind of tie into what is the experience of, what is the aftermath of experiencing warfare, right? Because in the United States has been at war basically for the last 17 years, yes. and we've had the UK's been right there
all the way through as well, pretty much.
Yeah, from day one. So it's it's both of our societies have this really interesting phenomenon where there's a very small subset of the population that is essentially participating in that load, and in both the U.S. military and in the UK's military, I've read articles that say that people who are most likely to actually join the military are sons and daughters of people who are currently serving in the military, and so it's almost become like a generational thing.
Yes.
And the same is true of law enforcement, interestingly enough. So what one of the things that we wanted to kind of not really play with, but explore was this idea of, okay, what does generations of conflict do to you as a person? What does it do to who you are? And what are the ways that you can deal with that? Because there's healthy ways to deal with it, and there's unhealthy ways to deal with it. And, and unfortunately, a lot of times, like the unhealthy ways are just a lot more easy to access for people. And so there's, that's a theme that ran through some of the very original noir fiction that was written in like the 30s, post World War I. It was very dark. And the reason it was dark is because it was after the Great War, right? The war to end all wars that, destroyed an entire generation of people. And so one of the major themes that runs through this book, and truth be told, the next one that we're currently writing, is how do you, as an individual person, but also how do we as a society, how do you cope with that? How do you healthfully deal with all those generations, all those years of conflict? How do you deal with that in a healthy way and not lose yourself in the process? So I kind of forgot where I was going with all that, but that's one of the major themes that runs through it.
Is the conflict between the AI and the host.
Right.
And in this particular instance, because of what ends up happening to Angel as opposed to and how they are brought together, there are some very specific things. Because one of the things that happens is, so you go through basic training, right? And they give you implants and an AI, and that AI is with you from the time you're 18. One of the things that kind of came through in this is one of the aspects of this war and the technology is that humanity's lifespan has been extended far beyond our present capability, and the useful lifespan is exponentially larger. Like as far as like being able to physically be a combatant,
right,
well into your hundreds, kind of thing. So. And both Muck and Angel and Siren, they're all three of those characters are older than Dirt in regards to most, what you would see as a normal veteran. But one of the things about being a long-term veteran is, especially if you're in a war zone for a very long time, and is you start to build up a lot of baggage.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff that you either, that is a survival mechanism for getting through this moment right now, but ends up being a hazard to you or your healthy life in the future.
Yeah.
And so your when they are starting to interact, Angel has been with a woman since that woman was 18 and is now in her hundreds.
Mm.
And she is riding a dude bro.
Right.
Who's
Yeah.
not only like a guy, but he's a big, brutish, knuckle dragging
big tank.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a tank, right?
Well, he's a UFC fighter. He's a heavyweight UFC fighter as opposed to a male heavyweight UFC fighter as opposed to a flyweight woman.
As opposed to a tiger that that is really what Siren was, So yeah.
I like that. I've been thinking about doing like Humans Last for a long time, and how war would affect people serving for such a long time, and that, because obviously how it does with us, with what short lives we have, to people who live for hundreds of years. And why are you doing that? I think that'd be quite a good eye opener for me to actually, for people who actually serve, and you're trying to guess how it would affect people over an even longer period of time. I really like that. I'm really, really interested in it. You sold it for me already. Like I was I read all my books, but I'm really, really interested. I'm probably cheered up for this now.
Just jump us to the top of your list. It's fine.
I know what book, the next two books I'm reading, because I'm reading at the moment. I'm doing two at once, and I don't know what my third book is. But you know what? Give me 3 weeks, and I might start this one. Actually, I'm really interested.
So
go on, go. Keep going.
To get you in the mood. So Kacey and I, we were talking earlier off camera about how we have a rather salty sense of humor and that kind of thing, and we were exchanging really gross and entertaining to us memes online. That's kind of how our friendship built online as we were just kind of hanging out. And, we're throwing them back and forth, and it was basically, let's see who can get to the bottom fastest.
That's right.
That kind of thing. But we also would talk about writing, and Kacey at the time was working on a couple of different projects. And I was goofing off and listening to YouTube, and there's a band called Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox.
Yeah.
Right.
And they take current pop songs or rock songs or whatever's on their airways, and turn them around and make them into torch songs or 30s jazz or blues, or they really make a really cool musical change to make old music styles with present lyrics and or arrangements, and really just make them brilliant. And they get some really amazing and talented singers to go along with it. And they had Haley Reinhardt fronting them for, I don't know if you've ever heard of the White Stripes, Seven Nation Army. It was quite popular in the late 10s. Early 10s.
I'd have to hear it to remember it.
And it's Seven Nation Army, and it's basically talking about seeing you through this veil of smoke and everything else like that. Mm-hmm. And Haley Reinhardt's attractive, and of course she's standing there in a sequin dress, singing the song about take a Seven Nation Army. It's really quite amazing. In any case, I sent the link to Kacey. Immediately on watching, I said, "This is the opening scene of a very noir book," and she's like, "Yeah, it is. Let's write it."
Right. Okay.
So that's what we did.
Cool.
Because it was very much inspiring to us, and so I would say, kick back with your bourbon or whiskey of choice, and maybe a cigar, and when you go to read the book or listen to the book on Audible.
Yes, talk about the audio then. Go. What are you? What's going on with that? Who have you got doing it? What's your plans?
So our publisher. Go ahead, Griff.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say our publisher is I don't want to say it wrong, is Blackstone Publishing. And they actually originally started with producing audiobooks from other publishers. They would purchase the rights to produce the audiobook, and then they would produce the audiobook. And then they, in the last 10 years, 5 years, something like that, they started doing, they decided to publish their own content. And so their audiobook chops are just really, really outstanding. Like, they have relationships with some phenomenal producers and narrators, just some really great talent. When we initially, I say we, it was really our phenomenal agent, Justin Bell. But when we were initially, when they initially negotiated our contract for the book, the audiobook was, they purchased not just the publishing rights, but the audiobook rights to Second Chance Angel. And they were, I actually Griffin and I suggested two of the narrators, and then they decided to come up with a third, because we do have those three separate voices within the story of Muck and Angel, and then the other AIs. And like I said, all three of our narrators are so good. And I'm very excited to actually listen to the audiobook version, because with three different narrators, two of whom are talking in first person, and then, the third one doing these cool AI voices. I think Griffin's right. I think it's going to be almost like a radio play to listen to, which audiobooks are huge right now. And yes, rightfully so. People listen to them while they work out. They listen to them on their commutes.
It's more convenient.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And they're,
and it harkens back also to the noir.
Yeah.
Because, you had a radio kind of thing going and that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
And the narrators are, Jennifer Jill Araya was a narrator for some of Kacey's earlier works, solo works. Mm-hmm. And then David Drummond, I'd listened to doing Walter John Williams's Empire series. It's been out recently, and he impressed me with his range, number one, but also that he had I liked to think of Muck. I have a relatively deep voice, and I like to think of Muck as having a deeper voice than I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, been there and done that. So I kind of wanted to have that thing going, and Drummond was able to get down into that deep register and hopefully deliver the goods on that. And then Natasha Sudik is I might be mispronouncing it, I hope not, but Natasha Sudik is the third narrator that's voicing the AIs, Sarah and Leo. And Natasha is the one that apparently was on Star Trek as a Vulcan. So yeah. I think you might get that, come by it honestly, as far as being able to voice the AIs and that kind of thing. Or at least she did. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her, because I haven't actually heard her narrate anything that I've read fully. So I'm fascinated to see what it's all going to come out to be.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I believe the audiobook is coming out at the same time as the print book on September 8th. So it should be available then. That's
nice. As someone who buys a lot of books, that's something that, for me, I can churn out a lot more audiobooks to listen to. Mm-hmm. But I do prefer reading a book. I do just like having a book. So, if you've got the option of the two, it is easier to go audio, so you can then, but if I buy it on paperback once, I'm not then going to rebuy the audio later. I'll just wait till whenever I get to the book to read. So mm-hmm. coming out at the same time, I think a lot of people would appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
From a fan's point of view, anyway.
Yeah, well, and we can't generally control this kind of stuff, and apparently some of our friends and other things, other publishers, they haven't got the audiobook because it's not the same house,
Right.
And that was one of the cooler things for us. Neither of us were experienced with, this kind of negotiation or being able to do anything with the audiobook. We were just, with our previous publishers, we were just told, yeah, this is what you're getting. And we're like, oh,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hooray. With this one, we're like, oh, that's awesome that we have a little bit of control. It makes you feel like you have a little bit more control over what's going on, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
but it's always nice to
input
be
at the
asked,
very
right?
least. And they were,
always
yeah.
nice to be asked.
Yeah, and Blackstone really was, like I said, Griffin suggested David Drummond, and I suggested Jennifer Gillaraya for
Like
two of the narrators, and they were like, okay, that's the author's choice. That's what we'll go with, you know.
And
it
they
was,
got him.
and they got him.
Yeah, they got him like right away. It was like no question.
Right.
So that was
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah. So
That's
I've been really happy to work with Blackstone.
Yeah,
So if anyone from Blackstone is listening, we really love you guys.
Yeah, thanks. So how long have you been with them? Or they?
This is it. This is our first.
Yeah, this is our first.
This is okay. So how did you come about? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that'd be nice.
We're hoping it's the first of many. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully the first of many.
So how did you come about, if you don't mind me asking, getting with them and that? What?
So we, Griffin and I, are represented by Justin Bell of Spectrum Literary Agency, and he shopped the book around, and Blackstone was interested, and so he negotiated a great contract on our behalf, and we just kind of went from there. You know, once he presented their offer to us, and you know, Griffin and I were both really happy with it, so we accepted their offer, and that's how the relationship formed. So it was, you know, a very traditional
Right.
author, agent, publisher kind of exchange, which is different than what either Griffin or I have had before. You know, for our other publisher with Bain, I think Griffin and I both have worked directly with the publisher, and then, you know, I've done some indie stuff as well. Well, so is Griff now, actually, with a small press publisher, where it's a lot more direct contact. But this one was a much more traditional type of relationship.
That's good. Right, I've got another question about your book now. So you're doing a sequel, obviously, you said. Are you, depend on the story, planning on more, if you can talk about that, or what is your plans regarding that? As well as, you've obviously got your story, but are you planning on doing anything expanding with the universe that also your story's in, if you know what I mean? Expanded universe, if you can talk about stuff like that.
So we have the second book called The Third Sin, because we like to mess with people's expectations, right? The second book called The Third Sin, but which also, the titles tend to harken to something else, usually within the noir or the science fiction, or both. And in this case, it does both. It makes reference to other works that we admire. And in that one, it's a little bit less mystery and a little bit more kind of hardcore conflict. But there's still the bigger mysteries as to what's going on in the universe are still there with us. And then we have a title and a preface for the third book, which will be called the First Law, or the First Question. Pardon me, the First Question. And that's, again, harkens back to a bunch of different things that we like to think about. And yes, we have things, we could go 5, 6, 7 books, but you know, the key thing that I learned from our other publisher, transferred to one of my other co-authors, Eric Flint, was do not ever write a single book as if you are writing it in a series.
Right.
In other words, you know, make sure that your book, your novel, your story is a discrete story that is going to tell a story.
Yes, a complete package.
Yep.
As you can do.
Yeah, don't write a second act to your first book, because it doesn't belong there, right? It's, you know, the best way to not be successful as a series is to not tell complete stories in your books. So, so long as we have complete stories to tell within this universe and with these characters, I think we're going to continue to do so. We really enjoyed working together, and we continue to work together well. So, you know, we didn't mention it, but at this moment, we're coming to you from 3 different continents.
Yes.
Or offshore of 3 different continents, I guess. With Kacey being in Tokyo, Japan, me being in North America outside of San Francisco, and you being in the UK.
Yes.
Yeah. So It's the wonders of technology are pretty.
I know, it's so good, isn't it?
And in the past, when we wrote this book, Kacey was in Virginia for the most part, and I was
Maryland.
here. So Maryland, yeah. So we were, we're already used to corresponding and stuff. The interviews have been kind of a hassle trying to get everybody up at the same time and stuff like that. Because we both still have day jobs generally, and family lives and that kind of stuff too. So there have been challenges, but we're going through them and progressing further. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to produce a bunch of cool books as long as people want to buy it.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing too is that the way we kind of world built this universe is it's really huge. And so, even when we get to the end of Muck and Angel's arc, there are other stories that are there to be told. Because we're talking a galactic war, right? Not just a world war, but a galactic war.
I like big galactic war. That's what I like.
So the aftermath of that is going to be, galactic wide. And so there's a lot of stuff out there that would be great to explore. A lot of stuff, even from, a lot of stuff we touched on in this book. That I think would be cool to go back and do like prequels to, just a lot. There's a lot there. And like Griffin said, as long as people keep buying the books, we'll keep writing them. So. No,
that's cool. Okay. Now technology, because I've got this thing, I have these 5 categories I talk about when I review a book. And one of them's like the technology and what the machines of war, like as in big ships, small ships, tanks, and all that stuff. What can you talk about? Do you have, as in technology-wise, anything that you think might be different to what other people? If you can talk about it, obviously,
No, you want to tell them about the gun porn scene?
Sure. Yeah. So we have. Well, let me start with this though. So the most obvious answer is the AIs. Running these cybernetic mods that are implanted into almost every human, because almost every human was a combatant. At least the ones that have survived were combatants in this war. And then, so that's a big part of the technology. The other thing is that we have an additional alien race that we introduced called the VMOG, and they were Griffin's idea. They were such a cool idea, such a cool race. But essentially, their society is structured such that they revere like artists, but artists in where their medium is technology. And what's that? Artisanship. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So so the most powerful and most successful of their race spend their entire lives working on their artisanship and creating their masterwork. And then once they've done that, they've reached the pinnacle of success and they essentially retire and have babies. Because everyone wants a piece of that sweet DNA, So one of our side characters is one of these VMOG masters, and her name is Belisani, and she is a weapons designer. And we make, I thought it was kind of, I was, it was one of those, if I do say so myself moments, but there was one of I thought it was kind of cute the way that we sort of offhandedly mentioned that she may have been the designer that came up with the technology that ended up winning the war. No big deal. Nice. So but she's a friend of Ralston Muck's, and there's a scene in the book where Ralston needs some weapons, so he goes to see her, and she pulls up this collection of all of these beautiful, like, exotic, super cool, some like dirty and beaten up, some like antiques, just all these weapons. And we wrote it in part as a kind of a wink and a nod to a lot of the like gun porn scenes that you see in a lot of military science fiction, because us Americans, we like our guns, right? So and we like and we like the gun stuff in our stories to be correct. And so so Griff and I just made up some stuff and decided it was correct.
So with that then, what sort of weapons are there? Because I like ballistics more, even with futuristic. I've never been a super fan of like pew lasers.
Sure.
I do personally prefer what we have, just more advanced versions, but what we have. But what have you got? This is as a fan talking, as someone who's interested. What have you got going?
So there's both represented in her collection,
Yes.
but Muck's like you. He's a fan of the projectile weapon.
Yeah.
So that's what he picks. So yeah.
Nice. No, that's cool. That's good. I do like that. It's like, yeah.
It's what he repeatedly selects. It's what he repeatedly goes, no, I want that.
Right.
I want the one that makes the big boom, the big explosion.
Yeah.
No, I do like that. Right, aliens. This is another one of my categories. With my category, it's usually aliens or who the enemy are, because usually the aliens are the baddies. So what you spoke a bit. What again can you talk about the aliens and what you've got going then?
So a lot of that was first off, that's one of the things I most enjoy about world building is thinking about and conceiving these races and kind of the weirdness that we see in nature. We have a plant-based species that communicates through scent and has to be translated. They're also they're so wired to be pacifist that they wilt and die at the thought of violence. And one of them is one of this race is a drug supplier for certain underhanded characters and other characters in the world. And then we have a criminal mastermind, badass boss who is also an alien and has an alien thought process and thinks differently. I don't want to give too much away on him because he's one of our favorite characters.
Yep.
We got quite cheeky with trying to turn things on their heads as far as like what your visual expectation might be of somebody and what you might hear of them.
If we were to say to you, all right, I want you to picture like the baddest ass crime boss, like the dude that nobody wants to even think about crossing because he will
Kaiser Soze
family. Yeah. Like that kind of dude. Well, in our book, he's adorable.
He's a lovely guy.
No, but he's the right bastard.
No, he looks adorable. He looks like something out of the, out of something the mouse would own. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I do
right
like.
bastard too.
Yeah. They're the best ones.
He's
And
sure.
we have guys that the club owner that they're performing at, or that she's performing at, and he's a bouncer at, is has he's on a snail trail. He's got a pseudopod, and his eyes are around his mouth, and he's not symmetrical like a human is. He's asymmetrical. So when he gives you a crooked smile, you don't know what the hell.
He gives you a crooked smile and it straightens his face up. Like
exactly. Yeah. We have a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with playing with those kind of tropes, and also working and even the MOG that Kacey was talking about earlier, the weapons designer. She has this kind of cute, bubbly personality, and she's this incredibly lethal scientist, engineer, designer, and she has a sincere affection for Ralston Muck, which makes Angel uncomfortable.
Right.
Cool.
Doesn't make Muck uncomfortable, but he's like, yeah, cool, whatever, because he has a history with her and has become accustomed to her. So yeah, we had some fun with that, and then also with AIs and how their thought processes differ from ours and why they differ from ours.
Mm-hmm.
One of my perennial problems with most anthropomorphic AI is the programming is cool, whatever, to simulate actual emotion. But if they were to actually suffer from emotion, what would that look like and why? And when we become self-aware, when we make an AI self-aware, what is an AI going to do? But why would it not shut itself off?
Yeah.
What is its survival? What's its survival motive, right?
Yeah.
And But if we instill the same survival traits that we have, then that becomes a really dangerous AI.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of thought that went into the world building as far as from all perspectives as much as possible. And then also, what would a well-run synergistic life of an AI and human be? And how painful would that be for someone to have it pulled?
Right.
So the very first introduction to Muck, he's a sad mofo. He is a really, really hurt and wounded guy trying to figure out, and he's thinking that everything will be right if he gets an angel.
Yeah, he's quite literally an amputee. A little bit of personal data. My husband was injured back in 2006, and he actually lost his eye in Iraq, and he has since recovered. He's fine, but he's an amputee, right? Part of him is missing, and so we were able to. That was one of the things that we really wanted to kind of dig into is like, you have this piece of yourself that has been ripped away from you. If you have the chance to get that back, what would that look like? And what would you do to keep that, and that's something that we explored in Second Chance Angel. And honestly, it's a thread that's going to run through future books as well. Because these things don't go away, There's one more piece of technology I wanted to talk about, because I was actually really happy with how it turned out. And that's the InfoNet. So, which is not the same thing as our internet, but on Last Stop Station, one of the things that we did is, have you ever heard of like smart concrete? So I read this article about it. It's essentially concrete that's mixed with all these like little nanobots in it. And, so that you can essentially have the wall taking like closed circuit televisions, for footage or whatever. And I mean, it's still a little bit out there and a little futuristic, and that's an oversimplification. But that's kind of what we wanted to do, right? So all of the, the way we set it up is that Last Stop Station was constructed of all of these materials that are embedded with these nanites, these nanobots, which transmit. And so the internet itself is, the InfoNet, which is like the internet on steroids, I guess, it literally permeates everything within the station. And one of Angel's talents is that she's a badass hacker. And so she has the ability to access these constant, it's like an atmosphere of data, if you will. And she's, and so that was one of the things that was also a lot of fun to play with in the storytelling is if you can do that, if you can ride this, this current of data, what are you going to get? What are you going to pick up, and where can you go with it? What kind of things could you do? So, yeah.
I like that. No, that's good.
Yeah. Which also poses, we don't want to jump the shark. We don't want to,
right.
How do you make sure that you're still constrained as you navigate this stuff? So, and we found some pretty, I think, useful ways of doing that still make it keeps it in the realm of plausibility and fun, as opposed to, oh yeah, that's obviously, So we had some fun with the world building, but we're always with an eye to, number one, respecting the material, respecting these characters and their experience of war and conflict and what it's done to them. Number two, is keep it plausible and keep it rolling right. Forward.
Right. And healing too, like healing is really another theme that kind of runs through this is what is it going to take, right? What's it going to take to make us whole, regardless of whether we're a literal amputee or, an AI amputee like Muck is, or if we've just experienced some kind of trauma, like what is it going to take, and what are you willing to do to get that healing? Are you really willing to do what it takes? That kind of thing. So.
See, I like this because a lot of sci-fi, a lot more action side of sci-fi, they obviously glorify all the fighting, always fighting and explosions and the death, which is always fun to read and stuff, but they never really humanize whoever it is who's doing all this stuff and like how it affects. you don't have to go into like loads of stuff, but just humanizing and the effects of what happens, which what you're doing, it fleshes out the characters and makes them a lot more a likable character. You know, so where you've done what you're doing, like all this stuff, I like that because I'm already sort of like feeling for him. I haven't even like read it,
Right.
but I understand. You know what I mean? That's you know, I read quite a lot of books, and the back books I just flick through, and it's a lot of action. And just the character dies at the end, but he just died. He just, died in the ship. Nothing ever happened. But if something happens to him, then you've turned them into real people. Basically, that's
Right.
what you feel like. And I like that. That's good. You put a lot more effort into your people, your character.
Well, exactly.
We both know some high speed, low drag operators, and that comes at a cost.
Mm-hmm.
It's not often. It's certainly not kosher to talk too openly about what that cost is, but it's acknowledged by the smarter folks that are involved in those kind of things, or that are associated with them, that you got to make sure you know what's going on, that there's certain how to put it, there's certain zones of control that these folks are going to really, really stake out and really have I don't want to say issues, but they're going to have strong opinions about how we talk about it. Mm-hmm. And while I'm not a combat veteran, I've been in a lot of fights. As a police officer, 20 years in a major metropolitan area, you get into a few fights, a few punch-ups, as your countrymen would like to say, right? And I've never been forced to take a life, and I'm thankful for that. But the stuff I have seen, and the lives I've seen taken, and the domestic abuse and all those things, they've all come with a cost. Mm-hmm. And none of the people that I interact with in that day job, they never, well, I'm not going to say never, but the vast majority of them, they have reasons for being the way they are, and for being what they're doing. They have reasons. So it's always been of interest to me to write or to communicate that, everyone's a 360-degree person, whether they're, someone you'd like to hang out with or someone you think needs to be locked away. That's totally different, but they're all people, and they all have similar motivations, given that we all have the basic survival modes and things like that. So,
yeah. And every villain is the hero of their own story. Right. And I mean, that's kind of where like we get the anti-hero trope too. And in some ways Muck is an anti-hero, in some ways he's not, but I mean, it's exactly what Griffin said. Every individual person has reasons for the way that they are, for why they are the way that they are. And we don't always get to know those reasons, but they're there.
Yeah. The antagonist in this one is he's just a dick. And you find out at the end that most of his dickishness was just him being a dick, but there was a certain element of it that was way beyond his mm-hmm. control, and that he was not really responsible for, which gives away a little bit. But
something's done something to him, affected him, to cause him to be that way. That most people in this world, there's always like a 0.01% someone just turns out bad, but most people, we all turn out clean slate. But it's what happens in our life.
Well, and for sure, but also the choices that we make.
Choices,
and that's in here too. That's another thing that we both wanted to play with, because one of the things that just pisses me off more than anything else is the common portrayal of war veterans, in a lot of like books and media and TV shows as just this, these whacked out people, who just, are completely non-functional because they've got PTSD and they're, and they're just complete train wrecks. And PTSD is a very serious issue. And it's certainly not one that is unique to the veteran community. and it is one that for which, you know, it is a legitimate problem that for which there is help, and people should feel confident seeking help for. However, we don't all suffer the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not just you got PTSD.
Right, exactly. You know, some of the most successful people, the highest performers that I know, actually have had treatment for PTSD or have suffered from it, and that doesn't make them any less competent people. But there are also people who have chosen to go and seek out the healing that is required, you know, that they need, and to address the issues that, you know, that they're having within themselves. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier when I said that one of our themes is, how far are you willing to go to make yourself whole? How, you know, are you willing to do that kind of hard work? Because I just didn't want to be another book that shows that anybody who's experienced trauma is broken. Well, maybe they're bent a little bit. That's going to happen. Trauma's going to bend you.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that you're broken, you know, beyond repair. And even if you are broken, you can be repaired. You just have to do what it takes. That's
the hardest part for anyone with whether it's that or any sort of issue. It's acknowledging and trying to do it. You know, that's very, very hard step. I mean, yeah. I've had stuff, not like that, but like I've had stuff happen, and other people like you'd have the same thing, like how everyone acts differently, and some people can't ask for help. Some people really struggle like that. You know,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
It's not easy asking for help.
No.
Because we're just chemicals. This is all chemicals up here. You know, and if one chemical's a little bit different, you just act completely different and you react differently, and it's just how we are, you know.
Yep.
So I like that. That's good.
And that was you know, being respectful of that, and you know, and representing the spectrum of experience that, you know, because some people that you know you don't know. We're all masks to everybody else, right? And unless you get, you know, and part of the thing too that we address a little bit less than I wanted to, but we kind of passed about it or talked about it at several points in the book, but because of the kind of the constraints of the story, is the veterans helping veterans. You know, is that, you know, there's nothing like somebody else who went through similar experiences to help you out and talking about those things, because you don't have to lay the groundwork for this is what basic training was like, and then this was what the situation was like, and these things were like this, or whatever it may be, so that you can actually you don't have to process things from A to get to Z. You can start, you know, at like X. This is the specific incident that I went through, and this is what jammed me up. And your comrades can say, you know, yeah, I've been through X, Y. Let's get to Z together. You know, they're further along that chain of both respect and understanding to be able to render assistance to one another.
Right. Right. And there's certain things that you can't explain. Like no matter how good you are with words. I mean, Griff and I are both pretty good with words. You know, we're both pretty good with descriptive language. I will never be able to explain to you what it feels like to be flying and have someone shoot at you. I can't. I mean, I can tell you words, but I will never be able to capture what that feels like.
Yes.
You know, Griffin will never be able to tell me this is what it feels like to comfort a.
Have your fingers in a guy, like the Dutch boy. Have your fingers in a guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like
I've had all of my fingers and thumbs in a guy to stop him bleeding.
I mean, he can say those words, but even so, like even with my imagination, I can't fully wrap my mind around what that felt like for him. Right. So the best that we can do is acknowledge that we have these experiences. We all have these experiences, and they're indescribable. but that they change us. And so we can talk about how we deal with those things and what changes have happened, and how do we get to, if we're not feeling like ourselves, how do we get to where we are ourselves again?
The consequences of not acknowledging it.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah, unless you've like gone through something closely yourself, you'd have a half an idea. But then again, how I would feel to you feel doing the same thing will still give us different feelings on that thing.
Right.
You know? So it's very hard. Yeah.
Right. But the closer that you get to that, though, the more, the easier it is to kind of talk about it. I'll give you a great example. My grandfather did 3 tours in Vietnam back in the 60s and 70s. And he would never talk about it with my mother, his daughter, who she served 24 years in the military, but she never deployed. She was a lawyer, and at the time, you know, in the 80s, that was just not something that she ever had to do. She served overseas, but she never deployed to a war zone. Within a few months after I got back from Iraq, my grandfather called me up out of the blue, and he was like, "So, how was it?" And we talked about what it was like being deployed and having, you know, rocket attacks in the middle of the night, and you know, flying over contested areas and stuff like that. And he would talk with me about it because I'd experienced something similar. So I could wrap my head around what he was saying a little bit better than someone who hadn't.
He probably, like, really not, obviously, you know, didn't want to, like, how do I say this? Being able to talk to someone who's been through it, especially someone in the family, I think that probably was really nice for him, being able to talk to you because you've experienced something along them lines. You know, I think that's probably, I don't know if he's obviously spoke to any other family members if anyone's done that, but because you did, as soon as you got back, because you served and you've been through action. Yeah. Because go on. I think that's quite nice for him.
It was nice for me. Yeah. It was, you know, it was a great acknowledgement for me. And I was very honored that he chose to tell me those stories. You know, but I think that it was easier for him because, again, you know, like Griffin said, he's not starting from describing what, you know, just the feeling of being deployed and living far from home and, you know, living in austere circumstances and all that kind of stuff. Although, I mean, I don't know how austere mine were. We had internet, so but he didn't have that in Vietnam.
No, that's nice. That's good. Right. Have we got any more questions? Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about? Anything about your book? Is there anything you'd want to? I
just want to show off this gorgeous cover again.
Go, do it. I will put a big picture up just so you know on the thumbnail.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you will. But yeah, this cover art, I cannot get enough of it. This was Todd. Oh, what's his last name, Griff? Do you remember? The cover artist. He is one of Blackstone's artists. Kurt Jones is his name. Kurt Jones. And he's so talented. So yeah, Second Chance Angel. It will be available everywhere, booksellers everywhere, online. On the 8th of September. And so if this goes up after that, it's already out there. And we hope you guys like it. And if you do, we would love to hear from you. You can reach me at my website at www.kaceyezell.net. And you can join my mailing list there too. And if you do, you get like free stories. So there's that also.
And I'm available also on Twitter and Facebook and griffinbarber.com. But mostly it's probably easiest to get a hold of me on Facebook or Twitter. And again, Griffin Barber. The Ranting Griffin is the Twitter handle. We also appear at cons, but in this year of COVID, we're not being able to do that so much. And then also with Kacey being overseas or in the land of the rising sun. We're hoping to be able to do some maybe next year or the year after that, for sure. But yeah, we're approachable. We also like talking to folks that want to talk to us and that want to talk.
I've had loads of fun.
Cool.
I've enjoyed this. Sorry.
No, you've done great. This was a lot of fun.
I will add all your stuff in the description
Okay.
as well, so they can find you if that's the case. Right. Well, yes. Thank you for being on. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, people who will watch us. Hopefully, if you got this far, much appreciate. Right, okay, well, thank you then, and goodbye. Okay, I'm gonna.
Hair is crazy today.
Oh, I would say mine is, but I shave it off. So it's like when mine grows, my hair grows long.
Enough of your Harris comments.
Yeah. Wow.
Don't worry, Griffin. I've got enough for all three of us here.
Yeah.
Mine grows out like a mushroom.
Body hair for all 6 of us, so we're good.
My mate's like that. Bless him. He's a Dutch guy, and he's like a grizzly bear. But he literally hair. It sort of stops here. He's got a big beard, and then he's got like nothing on top, and it goes all the way down to his ankles, and it stops at his feet, and it's just like grizzly all over. Like bless him. Oh yeah, God. Right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do my intro. I'm gonna put it there so it makes it look like I'm not actually reading something, but it probably will.
Except when you're squinting.
I like to say I squint to protect my eyes but I always get stuff in my eyes even though I squint. I don't know why. It's bad evolution.
I thought it was just to make you look more of a hard ass.
Yeah.
No, it's just I've got dodgy eyes. They just squint. And if I open my eyes properly like normal, I look really weird. You know, like. So, see, yeah, I wouldn't look right like this, would I? Right, let's do this.